Welcome back to a series of interviews with Irish home educated adults. I'm delighted today to be joined by Aidan Duffy from Meath. So, Aidan, I know I know your family since before you were born, so we know each other a long time. So, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Aidan, and I'm nearly 22 years old, and I'm the youngest of a family of 10. And I spent most of my young life, educated at home. Yeah, and I'm a musician, sort of. That's my main job and hobby and passion as well.
Okay. And do you want to tell us about the bits of school you did attend? Because you were very unusual in the family of 10 in that you actually spent some time in primary school.
That's right, yeah. When I was 7 years old, basically there's 5 years between me and the next brother, Ben. So when I was 7, he would have been 12, and I guess I was doing an awful lot of pestering, my next brothers and wanting to be included in everything, and they were accommodating to an extent, but I always wanted to be around them, and so I think it got to the point where they probably were getting a bit, I won't say fed up, but the way families get when their younger siblings are annoying them a bit and always being around, and my mum thought it might be a good option to consider going to school, meeting a few people my age around, because I had some friends, but a lot of them were, I was used to sort of spend time with other people in the family, people older than me, adults, and also my parents took woofers for a lot of years, so that's willing workers on organic farms, and that's an international program where people come and stay, and people stayed sort of at our house for a few weeks or a few days, and we'd meet people from all around the world. So I was used to spending time with people, but didn't have very many people in my locale that were sort of around my age. So my mother hatched this plan, maybe give school a try, maybe try it for a year or try it, So we looked into the local Gael school in Trim, and that was, yeah, it looked good and cool. I met the teacher. I was pretty young. I don't have vivid memories of sort of my introduction to it, but I was up for it, so we decided we'd try out there.
And were you reading when you went to school? Had you already
Yeah,
learned to read?
yeah, I could read and everything.
Yeah, I mean, were you reading at the age level that was considered what a 7-year-old should be? Do you remember having an issue with maths or Irish, which I know your mum's really good at, but I don't know how much Irish you had before you went to the Gael school. Do you want to talk a bit about slotting into school?
Yeah, well, I had pretty much no Irish as far as I can remember. So my English reading was grand and everything, but we did very little of anything English in that school. So in the first few months, the teacher made exceptions, and I was allowed to speak in English and that type of thing a bit. She was really sort of accommodating teacher, and I had to catch up on the bookwork of junior infants and senior infants. So as far as I can remember, they read a pretty simple book every few months, and there might have been 6 books or so, sort of from junior infants and senior infants that I'd never read. So she got
And
me
this
to
was
read
just
them.
in Irish, Aidan, just to clarify.
Yeah, they were all in Irish. Yeah. So she got me to read them to catch up with the class. So within, I couldn't tell you exactly, but I'd say about 3 months, 2 or 3 months, I had read all these books, and my Irish was decent. I was reading it pretty well, and I could speak it, well enough. Even the other kids in first class wouldn't have had fluent Irish or anything, but I had decent Irish sort of, so I caught up in a few months.
Brilliant. So when you needed
Um,
to, you were able to slot in
yeah,
and do what you needed.
I spent 2 years in total, so I finished out first class. There were definitely moments where I wanted to get out of it. I got fed up with the routine of waking up at 7 o'clock every morning and that sort of thing. It wasn't really my style when I was 7 years old.
So you had to travel. The school is about
But
4 miles from your house, maybe, or
5 miles, yeah, from the house. So between getting up, getting dressed, having breakfast, all the bits, and being in for 9, I think. So the alarm would be at 7. So yeah, I had moments definitely where I remember saying to Mom, "Oh, I'm so fed up with this. I don't want to. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go in." And I had some issues with the way they did things. Definitely, it was tough for me to be in an environment where you were sort of, there was somebody in the room who had power, and you had to raise your hand before you spoke and that kind of thing. Because in my world at home, I wasn't used to that, and I was used to being allowed to speak when I wanted to and ask questions. As you know, asking questions was really encouraged for me at home. In school, it was like I would be given out to sometimes for asking questions.
Oh gosh.
And I remember one occasion as well where we were doing a little test of some kind, and I didn't really understand what was happening. I'd missed something, or maybe my Irish wasn't good enough. And I just looked over to the girl next to me, and I was sort of just seeing what she was doing. And then, like, next thing I knew, I was getting roared at by the teacher. I couldn't really understand why it was such a big deal looking at what somebody else was doing to figure out how to do it.
So in my day, for people of my
So, you know, there was moments like that. And everyone said, don't be copying, don't be copying.
Yeah,
and I thought, why?
What?
Sorry, go on.
That's a really interesting question for to ponder about why a child helping another child, or if you didn't understand something, why getting your neighbour to help you, why that's so verboten. That's interesting take over there, Aidan. So you were in school till you were about 9. Did you come out at 9 then?
Yeah, that's right.
And then
I came out at 9.
Yeah.
And and then that was that. Back to sort of my home life, my routine, as it was before. Sort of, I'd made a good few friends. So I'd made one friend who lived just at the end of the road, a mile away, and I still spend, you know, a lot of time with him, and we'd be best friends, sort of. And I made friends with another family who were a few miles away, and we spent a lot of our childhood together. So I made a lot of solid friends, and it did its job in that respect.
Okay. So you did your schooling for 2 years, and that fulfilled that for you. And so just to recap, so you did no secondary school. You never sat the exam that most Irish teenagers take when they're around 15, is the junior certificate. And then 2 to 3 years later, when people are 17, 18, they do the leaving certificate. So you didn't take any of those exams?
No.
Okay. And then what about, so what did you do during those teen years when your age peers would have been doing their exams? And because you had friends who were still in school from your time there, you had, I guess, an insight into what that was like for those teenagers? Yeah,
I maintained good friendships with them through their exams and through their, you know, when school got more, as it does, it gets more oriented around exams, around the junior cert, it seems, or the year previous to that. I maintained good friendships with them, and most of my close friends, just as far as I can remember at that age, did pretty well in school. I said they had good grades or whatever, and they were pretty chilled out about it. I was able to keep good relationships with them.
Yeah, I hear in some families where sadly the social interaction between teenagers is kind of curtailed with the focus of the parents or the school saying that, oh yeah, you have to do, so pick a number, 3 hours at your books, 3 hours study before you're allowed to chat to your friend or play online with your friend or go cycling with your friend or go pick a ball with your friend. Do you know that kind of, the kind of thing I'm talking about? But you always had access to your mates. And then,
as far as I can remember, yeah.
Okay.
And like I say, sorry.
Go on.
As I say, I still had a home life. I get on with both my folks, and we were still taking morphers at that time, so I was still meeting people from around. I wouldn't be spending every day meeting friends, but yeah, as far as I remember, there was plenty of time to go around, and that wasn't too much of an obstacle there. Studies.
Brilliant. And then about the music,
Yeah.
then, or about third level, did you ever want to go? Did you ever go? Did you go and study a post leaving cert course or a FETAC course? Or
Yeah, so when I was 16, I moved to Kinsale, County Cork, and studied theatre there in a FETAC course, so level 5 and level 6. It was a 2 year course. First year was level 5 and the second year was level 6. And yeah, that was my first time out of home, and obviously I was pretty young. Like a lot of my friends didn't sit the leaving cert sort of till I was finishing up my second year in college. Um, yeah, and that was an experience, but I did all right, and I got on very well in that course, and I got good grades out of it as well, and it was really enjoyable couple of years.
yeah, that's definitely a theme for a lot of the people we'll be talking to, I think, in this series, that they went to do further education and training award courses, and certainly the is it called theatre studies, that course, I think, with Belinda and Ian Wilde in
Yeah,
Kinsale, that is, it has played a huge part, I think, in a lot of people's moving out from home into a well, it is an independent environment, to be honest. I suppose you're paying your rent, and if you don't cook, you're not going to you're going to go hungry if you don't find your own source of food and laundry and all those things that we want. So, as the youngest of a large family, you were quite independent at 16 to be able to go off and mind yourself.
yeah. Um, I guess so. I mean, I yeah, I was receiving the Susie grant as well, which was barely enough money to live on. But between that and whatever bit of support, or from my parents, or just from doing getting the odd bit of sort of pocket money doing a job or that, I was able to support myself, and it was a baptism of fire in terms of running a household. I'm sure I wasn't the ideal housemate for that first year in particular, but I learned quick enough, so I had to look after myself, I like to think.
And you know how to be tidy now, as we see from the layout of the room you're in.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
cleaned especially. No, yeah, I've definitely become more and more domesticated as the years have gone on. Thank God.
yeah, these are essential life skills, I think, Aidan. Okay, so you did your 2 years. So do you want to talk about, I guess the two questions for a lot of people are, um, how do you make money from your music? I don't know if you want to address that at all, or,
Just to backtrack a bit, I started playing music when I was about 6 years old. I think there was an old Spanish guitar in the house, and I was sort of obsessed with the Beatles and that, and I picked it up and played it and learned from a couple of people the basics, and did a lot of teaching myself through my childhood and teen years, and yeah, it was always my number one pastime, I'd say. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours playing guitar, and singing as well. But so it was kind of, I played in bands from a pretty young age as well, and I when I was in college in Kinsale, I would have had my acoustic there with me. I would have played a lot there. I was writing music. I was, yeah, playing for people and not gigging as much in those couple of years. But when I was finishing up, I had done a good bit of gigging before I left home as well. I had I had a cover band with two of my brothers, and we played around, and so we made some income from playing local gigs in pubs and that. Then when I was finishing up the course, my brother Ben, the next one up from me, kind of got on to me and said that there was this course up in Dublin, BIM, and had I heard of it, and I don't think I had. And he said that it was a modern music course, and they taught you everything from your instrument technique and styles of music to business and theory, and it was sort of to equip, how would you say it, to equip young musicians with what they needed to make a living in the current Irish climate. So he kind of, yeah, he told me about it and said he was thinking of doing it and would I consider doing it with him the following September. This must have been kind of around February, March that he got on to me. maybe earlier in the year. But and my other brother Tom as well. He said all the three of us should do it, and I thought, yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. He said we could live at home, we could commute up, and for the first while, see how we're getting on, and maybe in time move up to Dublin or whatever. But
what I'm hearing is that two of your older brothers actually said, let's go and do a course together. People are going to find that a bit strange, because often people feel that that college is about having an experience away from your family, and particularly people's stereotype about a family of 10 children today is that people won't like each other very much and will want to get away from each other. So the fact that your two next siblings actually said, let's go and do this course, that says a lot for the bonds in your family, I think. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I sort of forget that at times. But despite the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, I definitely annoyed them a bit when I was a kid, we were and are sort of best friends. We get on really, really well, and I would consider them both, all of my family, to be honest. But those two brothers I spent a lot of time with growing up. I would consider them close confidants. I could talk to them about anything, and even though we still have our moments, I really enjoy spending time with them. And we play music together, and it made complete sense to study together and to be a unit in that sense. So yeah, thanks for catching me on that one, because it hadn't even crossed my mind that might sound a bit peculiar to some people.
His brothers couldn't wait to
do you want me to just
you off to see the back of you at a Gael school, now want to go to college with you because you've turned cool in the meantime.
Exactly.
So
do you want me to quickly
go on? Yeah.
Do you want me to quickly run through BAME and how that year went for me, or
please,
would you like me to move on to something else?
Yeah, and just to clarify for people, BIMM is BIMM, the British Institute of Modern Music, based in Dublin. So just in case there are people watching who haven't a clue what it is, because I didn't when I was told about it first. So
So that spring we auditioned, the three of us, me to do my guitar and the lads to do drums and vocals respectively, and and then I moved home after my year was done in Kinsale. I'd gotten, just in case this is important to anyone, I'm not gloating, but I think I'd gotten 6 distinctions from 7 modules, or 7 distinctions from 8 modules, I can't quite remember, and a merit. But anyway, that's just in case there's any concern about that. I got on well in that course. So BIM were willing to sort of accept the FETAC level 6 as the leaving cert, and they translated that in some way into points as if I'd sat a leaving cert, because it's an equivalent certificate. So the way that course works to get in is they combine your leaving cert points with your interview. So you have to do an interview first and play music and all that, and they take half from each. If you're not a mature student. If you're a mature student, then it's just based on your interview, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, I went and did an audition, and it went very well, and I got into the course, and we studied there I nearly did a full year, but I left. There was modules that I enjoyed in it, but overall, musically, I wasn't flourishing. I learned an awful lot. I learned a lot about music business, and I learned about theory, and my playing improved definitely for being around a lot of players. But it didn't, for me personally, it didn't connect me in the way I was hoping it would, as in I didn't meet a lot of musicians who wanted to play with me, who I created music with. But that's just my own personal experience. I tried it, and I decided to leave it. So I left it I finished up most of the exams, but I didn't finish a complete year, which was, that's just how I felt about it. Like, I remember when I was younger, my mother would encourage me to finish out, finish the year or finish the thing. And I think that is usually good advice, but there comes a point as well where, how, how to put it, like, there comes a point where, okay, I'm not enjoying this thing. I don't plan on continuing it anymore. I just want to leave it. That's sort of the feeling I had by the end of it.
Yeah. I think
Once
that's
again, much like my
really
primary
good.
school experience, I had met people and I had enjoyed it for particular reasons, but I was ready to get out of it.
Yeah.
Is
It
that
had
sort of how
met
I
your
felt about
need
it
at that
stage?
point, and
Sorry, go on.
it had met your need, I think, at that point. And yeah, I think that's a really important point what you're bringing up there.
Completely.
That certainly from my childhood and from the way I was raised, which I think is pretty similar to your folks' outlook, is you have to keep your nose to the grindstone. That's one of the phrases coming to me, and it's really bad to give up things or leave things half done. And
Yeah,
while I certainly understand the idea that commitment is important, I think it's not across the board. And I think it's okay to be discerning about the things to which we commit, and it's okay to try things. I liked what your older brother Jude said about a beginner's mind,
yeah,
and about being open and curious. And if you're getting to a point where something is one, I suppose that one of the buzzwords today is mental health. So if you're getting anxious or upset or depressed or just like, oh, I can't face another day or I really don't like it, then it's okay to say this is not for me any longer. Or even if it's not a mental health issue, but just literally, my time is important and this is not fulfilling my need for connection with other musicians, which is what you stated, and being with your brothers and stuff, and learning together. And I guess you were hoping to find musicians and hoping to find people to collaborate with. And yeah, so you got some of your needs met in that course. But I think it's a great strength to be able to say, I
yeah.
made a mistake, or not even I made a mistake, but it's fulfilled my need now, and it's time to move on.
Completely. I think it's, for me, in my head, if you do a year at a course and you don't finish it, you don't get the qualification, I don't see that as a mistake or that you put a foot wrong or that you wasted a year. Because I think it's a bit of an illusion to think about it like that, as if something is only worth something to you if you complete it, in the sense that it's only worth something if you get the qualification or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, that's putting the cart before the horse a bit. Like, life and learning, as I've learned from my own life, it's made up of experiences you have, and experiences is the teacher. Life is the teacher. So 1 year spent there, I had a lot of new experiences. It grew me as a person, and that's something I took from it, definitely. And I think another thing I'd say is I have a sense, and I don't know if this might not be very common, but I have a sense about myself that regardless of the course that I end up in, or if I complete this thing, if I pass, blah blah blah, I know I'll be okay. When I left there, I thought, okay, this isn't for me, but whatever it is that I move on to next, I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to make things work for me. I don't think it's good to hang your expectations on a result from an external sort of thing like college, or you need to have your own integrity, as far as I'm concerned, and your own self-worth.
Wow, wow. You're a very wise young man, Aidan. That's brilliant. Yeah, yeah, that's a really good, I guess, mantra or philosophy to live by. I think I really, yeah. Thanks for that reflection. That means a lot. Do you want to talk a little bit about money, about the kind of jobs you've done? I know money is a touchy subject for people, and it's fine if people need to be more private. But what I've certainly observed with a lot of artistically and musically inclined, home educated young people is that they can turn their hand to lots of different things. If they need to make money doing painting or carpentry, they'll do that. Or if they need to do it teaching English, they'll do that. Or if they need to, if they can get someone to
Yeah.
put money in their hat for busking or for performing in venues, then they'll do that. So do you want to speak a bit, if you want? Do you want to tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about
completely. No, I'm 100%, yeah, comfortable with that. So, yeah, I never did. I unlike my brother Jude, who was on a previous one, who was working from the age of 10 or whatever for £2 a week. No, not really, but whatever. In my experience, I didn't have a full-time job until after BIM, so I would have been like 18 or 19. I'd done bits of work here and there, but at that time, another brother of mine, an older brother, had opened a pub in Trim, the town I'm from. So I moved back to Trim, or I'd been living in my folks' house, but I moved into an apartment in Trim, and I started working a bit in his pub and playing music and gigging again. So for the next couple of years, I sort of employed a mix of gigging, seeing how much gigging I could get, and wherever that wasn't possible, or wherever I had a few weeks maybe that there was no gigs, I could work for Peter a bit and earn sort of my keep in the pub.
So doing barman.
And that was, playing the barman, exactly. Which was also an enjoyable experience, and in its own right, although it is taxing over time, the late nights and the repetitiveness of it. But I had a great time in the bar as well, working there. And then over time, I stepped more into weddings, playing weddings. So that would have been about a year ago I started playing them. And that's sort of, in the Irish music scene, that's one of the established ways that you can make a proper living. As in, you don't need to be gigging 3 nights a week or, and grinding by. You can sort of gig 1 or 2 nights a week and live comfortably off it. So all through last summer, so the summer just gone, and a lot of the summer before it. Is that right? No, summer isn't just gone.
I know it feels like it, but
it really does, yeah. Well, it's been a bit of an on year so far. The summer of 2019 and some of the summer of 2018, I played a lot of weddings, and I lived off that comfortably. And if I had quiet weeks or quiet months, as the case is with weddings, I could always work for Peter. I could do a bit for him or that. And since then, I've sort of been renting and living in Trim. That's where I am now at the moment. And I also do a bit of teaching as well these days. So I'm giving video lessons at the moment, and that's teaching the guitar.
You're teaching guitar, yeah.
Different students. Yeah. That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So that's sort of how I make my bread now as an adult. Bit of a jack of all trades in a way, but.
And I think that's really interesting for people to reflect on that. What we're seeing is people being independent of home. One of people's fears about if they don't send their children to school, to creche, play school, and secondary, if children are at home for longer than is conventional, people are afraid, it seems to me, that their young person will never become independent, either independent in terms of cooking and laundry, so life skills, bill paying and money earning. And I think your experience has shown us that at quite a young age, that those fears people have are unfounded, and that stereotype that basically if people aren't shoved out of the nest, they will stay there for a long time. I think that's,
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say
completely.
to somebody, so particularly who's thinking about, well, the kids have been out of school for the last couple of months, and it's a very different experience to a free-flowing home education that a lot of Irish young, intentionally home-educated people have had. But is there anything you would say to anybody who is thinking, not sure about September, it's actually been quite cool to have a slower pace of life, maybe we mightn't send the children back? Can you think of any, I don't know, any advice, any words of wisdom?
Well, I'd say, first of all, like, there's no harm. No one's going to die if you try for a year or, a few months.
Yes.
And I understand that not everybody is in a position where it's realistic or it makes sense for them. But I think it really is well worth a try, because I think it can make you question a lot of things that we do. There's a lot of conventions that we do without thinking about them in this world, and some of them I think aren't serving us, and it's always a good idea to question them and to keep thinking, okay, is this giving me what I want? Is this, and you never know, if you try a different way of life and more time, it could really work for you a lot better. It could optimize your sort of time and your experience. And I would also say that I I think there are still a lot of people that think that their kids won't learn or won't be smart if they don't go to school, and I think that's a complete fallacy, to be honest. It's not true. I think the world teaches us, and school is in the world, so it's one place we can learn, but we learn anywhere we are, and that's what we do. We learn, we adapt.
That's a brilliant way to finish up, Aidan. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy teaching schedule
Oh,
to
I'm
chat to
shocking
us
busy
today.
this week.
And I look forward to meeting you soon again in real life. Thanks, Aidan.
You too, man.
Take
I
care.
hope you're keeping well.